and Commissioner Varga to chair this. We thought they're the chairs of Ways and Means and Economic Development. Mark Abel sent a sheet this morning. Hopefully everyone received it. Just a couple of pages of where we are so we get a big picture of what funds are available to what communities as of now and what we can do to fill the gap for businesses that aren't in the dedicated zip code census tract on the measure that we discussed last week at full board. So I just want to kind of put that in perspective. I believe Khalil was going to try to make the meeting. I don't know if he's on here or not. But
I'm on here.
He's here.
You are? Okay, very good. So this is a discussion to one, see where the gaps are and to see how much money we feel we could allocate to fill those gaps so that businesses, so that we can help businesses. We're not gonna be able to help all businesses, but we wanna help as many as we can by providing some type of relief through the general fund. As we talked about last week, those were not general fund dollars. Those were county business enterprise dollars. The conversation that we're having today will actually come out of our general fund. So I just wanted to set the table as to where we are and have a discussion on this morning discussion. And then on Wednesday, maybe if you all can reconvene again with a recommendation to full board, which will be on this Thursday. So I'm done. Thank you all for meeting. And just as a side note, I'm on a conference call right now with the pension board. And right now, because of the market, the pension board has lost about $100 million. And what we're gonna have a conversation about when I jump back on that call is just what that does for our unfunded liability and how much the county will have to put in to the pension board so that we can make all of our obligations. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Hados and Commissioner Varga. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know in the beginning we asked for $3 million from the general fund at no risk to the county because those money, it will be collected in a short time back to the county and they could be put back in the general fund. But the situation getting worse and worse and we have too many factors and I discussed that with Commissioner Varga, the co-chair, and I discussed that with the chairman, Alicia, Madam the Chair, Alicia Bell. So we've been really trying to find what's the fair amount because the bank willing to have the matching fund. And the idea is to go for $3 million at no risk to the county, but they're small businesses. They not cover under the first $3 million because it's restricted to the low income area. And now we need to cover the whole county without hesitation because the need is all over the place. And they've been discussion with the chair and the co-chair, Varga, is to go down to $1.5 million twice, one now and one later. But I felt we don't want to commit for later. We don't know what's later gonna bring to us. The situation might get worse, might get better, and maybe we should, compromise a little bit and have $2 million at the present time with no restriction, plus the matching from the bank, and the other three with the match and restriction. That should be something the county could live with. Given the circumstances. So my position now, I did agree with the chair, Alicia Bell, as to go down to the $2 million plus the matching from the bank. And that would be a compromise situation to assist those businesses not covered by the other side. This is my
to Mark Abel.
could we go to Mark Abel and just have him go through this work that he had provided us from his office as to what businesses are currently available to get. So Mark, would you go through it real quick for us, please?
Sure. The summary that was sent out this morning, it deals with programs that are available from federal, state, and local sources. And from the federal perspective, talking about just small business, they've allocated about $350 billion. And it does allow up to $2 million. And it's basically for working capital purposes, a lot of which would be forgiven. You know, the payroll aspect of it would be forgiven as long as the company retains the employees. There's a grant of a loan advance, a quick loan advance of about $10,000 that can be received from federal purposes also. That's shown in the third paragraph under the small business area. I don't know if we want to talk about large corporations, but I don't think that's the focus of this meeting. But through the state of Michigan also, the state of Michigan has two programs. One is a grant program for $10 million, and the other one is a loan program for another $10 million. The grant program is being administered by local economic development organizations, Wayne County and Detroit included. Detroit and Wayne County have been allocated $1.6 million, and it's grants of up to $10,000. The loan program, again, the state has allocated $10 million. The loan program is $50,000 to $200,000 with very low interest rates. And you can see the differences there. The grant program is 50 employees or less, and the loan program is 100 employees or less. And then on page 2, the very bottom of the page that I sent out is the program that is being coordinated between Wayne County and TCF Bank. And again, that's $10 million, up to $10 million. And you can see the parameters, loans of $5,000 to $50,000, businesses under 100 employees, demonstrating 25% revenue loss, low interest rates, and interest only for the first 6 months.
Okay, thank you. Khalil, how do you see, if you could chime in, Khalil?
Yeah.
How do you see these programs? What percentage you think this might help in our county for the small businesses?
I think that's a great question, and maybe I think Mark did a really, really good job of maybe outlining the fact that there are already resources that do exist, right? I think that's the point, that Mark is making. But I think it's worth maybe expounding a little bit about those resources and the differences and why ultimately we came up with our program. You have the state allocating us $1.6 million in grants, and those grants are for anybody in Wayne County. Okay, there is no low income restriction on that, so I want to make that very clear. Those grants are capped at $10,000 a grant. Okay, and that's a wonderful thing. I think if there is something negative about that, it is that when you hand out a grant to a small business, that turns into taxable income, and so there's a tax hit at tax time for that small business. And if you're a 1 to 4 person shop, that may be good for you in your time of need. It may not be. And so businesses have to be talking to their CPAs to really figure out if this is going to be good for them or not. The second thing that I think Mark talked about is that the state also allocated $10 million in loans at really good interest rates. The interest rates are 0.25%, but the loans are between $50,000 and $200,000. Okay. So, there's a space there of, well, what about the small business that needs something between $10,000 and $50,000? We did a survey and we got back some amazing results. I think in 4 days, over 450 responses, and the average request was for a little bit over $26,000. It's not an exact science, but it certainly gives us a parameter of what people are looking for. And then you have the federal stimulus package. Now, Mark is right in that the federal government allocated $350 billion. They actually put together 3 different packages, and the latest stimulus package, that $350 million, is actually 2 forms of relief for small businesses there. Number one, there are low interest loans out of the $350 billion. It's actually for any business that is 500 employees or less, okay? And the max amount of business can get under the latest stimulus package is $10 million. And those loans are capped at 4%, so double our program. They're working with local banks. And the problem with all these programs are, it is going to be a while before someone gets a check in hand, okay? The other thing I'll tell you about the federal program is that it can turn into a forgivable loan. So they can turn into grants that do not turn into taxable income. The legislation actually specifically lays that out. So there are, like I said, other resources for, small businesses. Our program, look, we did that because there was a need right now, not 45 or 60 days from now. A lot of small businesses that are, below 10 employees, they don't know how to work through the bureaucratic federal process. And so it's not very, very easy. And they can't afford to wait. And so our program has a better interest rate. Money is in hands of people immediately, and it can be facilitated a lot better. I will tell you that in, the first 2 or 3 days of the program, we've gotten about 260 inquiries. 139 businesses were deemed eligible in the eligible areas. 22 completed applications were submitted. 9 of them were approved, and 1 of them has already been fully funded. So there is a Wayne County business today that has a new lifeline because of our program, and no other program that we know of could have moved as fast. There is one downside to our program, and that is it only covers 64% of the county. And that's because the amount of funds that we have in the CDE required that it had that restriction. So I know folks are trying to get small business resources out there. I know we would love to cover the rest of the county, but there are other considerations. And we have our CFO, I believe, I sent him the contact information for this meeting. Huey, are you anywhere on here?
Khalil, I'm on. Hi,
Okay,
hi
great.
everyone.
So I think, the one thing that we have to talk about is that there are financial considerations. Huey is really, really busy right now trying to figure out, what the coronavirus implications have been to our overall property values and revenues that we're going to have coming in. And so, I think that is something that is worth a discussion.
Madam Chair?
Yes, go
this-
ahead.
Yeah, this is Mark. I agree with Khalil on that. Having been involved somewhat in what happened in 2008, I can tell you that at that time we lost probably just over $100 million in revenue as a result of reduced values of property in Wayne County. And I know the chair had indicated so far a loss of about $100 million in our pension assets. Now, in all likelihood, we're going to recover a big portion of that. But if we didn't, at 7.25% over the amortization period of 15 years, that would cost us about $10 million per year. Now, again, I'm not going to say that that's going to happen, but that's what would happen if we didn't recover any of it. And I know that that's probably unlikely that we won't. Again, those are, and clearly you're right, those are the concerns and cautions that we have before we do anything. I mean, the other side of this, if we do it, it's a loan program, and Khalil, at the discussions that you and I had, we will probably recover most of the money that we put forward right now. But
well, to be fair to all those sides, it is a loan program, and it is a loan program that also has a match to it. So, it really is dependent upon how you want to look at it and what the projections really say. Some people could argue that this investment in our community is a way of preventing our values from dropping. And if the request is for $2 million, the bank also puts up $2 million. And so, you're not just recovering, you know, the majority of your money or whatever the fault might be, but you're also, you know, encouraging investment in areas of the county that aren't getting it right now. And so there's definitely two sides to this coin, you know.
The other thing is when you look at the array of programs that are being initiated, you know, by different governments, I see it as three different types of spending. One is for the healthcare itself, which is what the state of Michigan is trying to do. I know that there are two bills in front of the governor today that she's being asked to sign. I think one is for about 125 million, the other one's for 25 million. So that's for the healthcare aspect of this situation. The other one is there was a lot of criticism of the federal government in 2008 because they directed the money strictly to business and not necessarily to residents. And so they, with their stimulus, $2 trillion stimulus program, they've tried to do that, put money to you know, American citizens. And in Wayne County, I think that on a going forward basis, there may be a need for some of that if we're so inclined. People paying rent, help with foreclosures and things of that sort, as if they run into trouble economically on a going forward basis.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
I would like to recognize Commissioner Markey. She's had her hand up for quite a while. Commissioner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was on mute. Sorry about that. I'm assuming we're going to hear from Huey soon. I'd like to hear his position on this. And Mark and Khalil, I understand that our checks would get to our citizens' businesses quicker than the Fed and the state. But do you have any idea of the timeline of those two entities getting this out to businesses and to citizens for that matter, but first of all, businesses?
I will tell you that our shop has tried to reach out to the SBA for some guidance on this, and the best that we could get back from them, by the way, there's a couple of different considerations. There's the programming of it, right? And so you have to have people fill out complete applications. If anybody here has ever tried to get a loan, you know what that process is like. It's a, you know, submitting an application is one thing. Submitting a complete application is a whole nother, right? And that takes time when banks or lenders tell you, I need this, I need that. The one thing I'll say about the TCF loan program is it is a one-page application, and we're dedicating people to help people submit complete applications. So that process is definitely going to be faster. The turnaround time that has been given to us by the SBA is their goal is to do it within 48 hours of getting an application approved. And then they have a goal of getting checks in hands, and they say it will be no earlier than 45 days. That doesn't mean it's going to be 45 days. Now, I think with the federal stimulus package that just passed, the federal government's tone is to speed that process up. You know, the checks that Mark is talking about, they're trying to get it into people's pockets, you know, via their tax returns and their direct bank accounts. That's a lot quicker than having to issue a check, right? And so what we've been told is, you know, the tax returns and people's bank accounts, that's going to happen likely in May. And so we don't have a definitive answer for you, but just guessing based on all the things that we've heard, you know, if personal checks are going to get into people's accounts, you know, into middle of April to late April or early May, then, you know, SBA loans are going to be even later than that.
Okay, thank you.
Could we
That's all I have right now.
Yeah,
hear
and
from
this is,
Commissioner Baydun? And then I'd like Huey to chime in, please.
absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I got a couple remarks. First, the question, Mark, on this analysis or the summary you sent this morning, now under the federal grants or the programs, a business owner can apply for that $10,000. Where did I see that? Here, hold on. Yeah, the small business owners are also eligible to apply for an economic inquiry disaster loan up to $10,000, which will be forgiven. And also, it says under the state, there's a similar program for the 10,000. Does that mean a business owner can apply with the federal and with the state for that 10,000? Does anybody know?
I can answer that. These are good questions. The $10,000 cap, okay, grant, and it's a grant, that is state money that's going to be coming through our office, okay? And the state has said, they're okay with people getting the grant. They don't want people double dipping into state funds. So you cannot get a grant of the $10,000 and a loan under the state. But you can pretty much mix and match, any other category you wanted to here. If you got a grant under our program with the state of the $10,000 cap grant, you could still apply for a TCF loan. You could still apply for a federal stimulus package SBA loan.
Okay. The other point that I have, I believe putting measures in place to prevent decline in property value is very essential because we saw what happened back in 2008, 2009 when the market crashed. And as all of you know, the Hadley Amendment Proposal A, when properties drop and people protest their assessments, they have to, the cities and the county or the municipalities will have to lower their assessed and taxable value, which means it's going to take us many years for those properties to come back up. So that the Hadley Amendment Proposal A has a one effect. If we were to, in other words, if the properties were to decline, it's going to take many years for them to come back up because they get recapped at the lower value. So I'd like to hear the analysis of the CFO about how much potentially we could lose in tax revenue as a county.
Yeah, let me go ahead and start the conversation, if I may. I'm sorry. Let me wait to be recognized.
Yes, you may.
Excellent. So there are a lot of
Please
things.
do.
This is Huey Newsom, the Chief Financial Officer. So there are a lot of things that we're considering, we're looking at, and notwithstanding Mark's comments a few minutes ago, talking about historically what happened in property tax valuations, as well as degradation of our OPEB and pension plan that we saw in 2008. I'm not comfortable yet in assessing what the cost is going to be. I think we've had some high level discussions regarding how bad things could be. But we don't even know when the curve is going to start to dissipate and level off. So it's difficult to look at. But there are three pieces to it, right? We have the revenue losses, we have the costs that are associated with all of this, but we also have the some of the offsetting revenue or inflows that are coming in, and we're taking deep dives into all three. I think everyone knows about the CARES Act, and there's roughly $150 billion that's available to large municipalities. This is a law that was signed into law by the president, I think Friday or Saturday. So I will, as best I can, we'll find the right mechanism as we learn more and are ready to share more. We'll provide it to commission staff and eventually commission in some sort of formal way, and that of course will flow into the fiscal 21 budget adoption process, right? So step by step we'll get there. And I will also comment on Headley and make a larger point. I think, and one thing I'm really challenging myself to think about is this is a time for us to be talking to the legislature. I mean, I think we all, as government officials, really see the challenges with Headley. I'll be nice about it. We see the challenges with Headley. This is a time, in my mind, this is part of the strategy of let's not account for the losses. Let's really push Lansing and even the federal government to help us deal with it. And this might be a time for us to say, maybe it's time for Headley to go by way of the dodo bird, right? Maybe it's time for it to go because that's really going to hurt us as part of the recovery. So now going back to the conversation on the table in front of us today, Khalil and I've had a number of conversations about this. I think when you start talking about investing money to air quote to save property tax value, that's a conversation to have. If every single small business goes under, we're going to see a degradation of property tax valuation. There's no question. But the key thing we want to be able to do, and this is very difficult in these situations, is to come up with some sort of cost benefit analysis, right? To make sure that we are, as we've been talking about, getting our money's worth. We do want to save these businesses. We want to help these businesses, and but we also are going to have to be very careful with our dry powder, as I like to say, because we don't know what the next year, 2 years, 3 years looks like. So a lot of TBDs here, as you can imagine. But as Khalil said at the very beginning of the conversation, we're feverishly trying to frame it and then put some numbers to it. And we will find mechanisms to keep you all up to date as much as possible.
Can I just, Madam Chair, or Mr. Chair, if I could just add to that a little bit and just piggyback a little bit off something Mark said and Sam, to tie those three things together. There was an idea that said we don't know what else we have to do here. The federal government is doing, spending money, and states spending money, and they're spending money either on fighting the virus, they're spending money on putting checks in people's hands, they're spending money on small business loans. Obviously, the county, we've done a great job recovering financially to put us in a better position to handle circumstances like we're facing today, right? But we can't do all these things. I don't know that anybody can tell you that we can afford doing, things on the level of, fighting the virus, getting people, checks in their hands for rent, and those kinds of things. I will say that of all the things that you can do on a personal level, on a business level, or on a health level, maybe the most cost efficient thing to do, and I'm not saying that that's the driver, but the most cost efficient thing to do is to look at these small business loans for a couple of reasons. One, obviously they're loans, so the money that comes back to us, and if there's a default rate, it's a small default rate, and there are mechanisms in place to help us recover whatever defaults that are out there. And then number two, if it were $2 million, it turns into $4 million with the bank matching that. So if you're looking at ways to prevent Headley and Prop A losses, assuming for a second that the legislature is not going to change, I don't think we can assume that anytime soon. Of all the investments you can make that have the least financial impact, I do think that this is probably the most prudent one that you could make.
Commissioner Dow.
Thank you. I would like to discuss the terms. If we do decide to go ahead with putting in additional funds. So I understand that the TCF loan program has terms of 12 months for that loan, and also requires a personal guarantee from all investors that have more than 20% of ownership in the business. And that does concern me, because I think those are pretty strict terms, and I feel like we're going to see a high percentage of defaults on these loans. I'm curious to see what the terms for the state loan programs are, if anyone knows what those are.
The state hasn't really come out with all the terms, other than the interest rate is at 0.25%. And again, the difference between other loan programs and this one is that it's a micro loan program. It's between $5,000 and $50,000. And so the terms of the loans and things like that, personal guarantees, if you were to go, for a business loan under normal circumstances, I think you would find, more collateral than that, to be honest with you. They're not necessarily asking to be first in line on mortgages or things like that, but there's got to be some level of collateral for all the loans. And so in terms of, how lenient things can get, I can tell you that if we were to do another program, or if at least the administration, if we were, if the commission wanted to do another program, I think we would really be forced to use the same exact terms and circumstances, because there's so many different programs out there now. I don't know that we can afford to put a different one out there, if that makes any sense.
Okay. I have one other thing I'd like to bring up is from my Canton Chamber of Commerce. They reached out to me and said that they don't have an opportunity to apply for financial support, either a loan or a grant, because they are 501c6. So if there's any way that we can incorporate ability for them to apply for financial support, that would be a good thing for them.
Yeah, nonprofits and religious institutions can still apply for the loan. It doesn't. They still have to qualify though. So there's got to be some mechanism for them to be able to pay it back. And so, the loans are usually difficult for that space. I do know that the $10,000 grants are eligible for nonprofits. I don't know if they're more eligible between 501c3s and 501c6s, and so I'll try to get some clarity around that for you.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Alona.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yeah, thank you. I wasn't sure if it was showing up or not, but Khalil,
Yeah, it's showing up.
Okay. If there was, I am too, if I am concerned that we don't see layering or people that are taking advantage of all the different things that are out there. So I'd like to see us make sure that we have something that's not going to allow that to happen. That's a concern to me, that we need to reach out to the people that have not already applied and received or in line to receive funding. But at least as the county, I'm talking about the county funding that we're involved with.
Yes, sir.
Well, I like to comment on this issue, Commissioner Varga.
Sure. You're co-chair.
Yes, the issue here, the loan we given, or the loan the federal government or the state, sometimes it put all the three together might not be enough to save the small business, the one going through the hardship right now.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, so the problem is the amount the county put in. It's a very, very small amount, could carry the business to make a payroll or rent or utility for 1 month or two probably. So that's why we, in such a hard time now, we need to try to help everybody. If they comply and fill up the application and meet the qualification for the loan, I think, and speed the process to save them, I think would be the right thing to do at the present time. I've been watching this very carefully. We don't want to be reckless because we know things might get worse for everybody, for the county, the state, the federal, and the businesses and the resident. So we don't know, but like they said, prepare for the worst and hope for the best. And I think our duty to the county businesses at large, and not one area and not the other. So to try to have that available loan for everybody in Wayne County. And as you mentioned, the risk, it's very minimum to the county. So because they gonna ask for collateral, they gonna ask for qualification. So the debate now is how fast can we do that, and how, we have a different number of, but we all could come together to try to do something and move on fast as possible.
To that point, Mr. Chair, I just want to clarify. I was, excuse me, speaking is that they should not, in my opinion, be able to get both sources of funding from that the county is involved in. Nothing to do with the state or the federal government loan program.
Oh, with the county, I agree. You're going to get one under the low-income area or the non-restricted area. Yes, you cannot
That's
apply
right.
for both. Yes,
That's right.
I
Yeah.
agree with that.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, go
Khalil,
back.
I would be interested in, I'm sorry. Khalil, I'd be interested in finding out what that one-page application asks for.
We'll make sure you get a copy.
Okay, thanks. Commissioner Maraki had her hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Chloe, that'd be great if you sent all of us a copy of that one page. I appreciate you and Mark going through the differences of what the state's going to give people and the grants and the differentiation and all that. I appreciate that. My question, Khalil, is how is the county going to distribute, what mechanism are we using to distribute the grants?
The $10,000 grants. It's a good question.
Yes.
So we applied with the DEGC, the city of Detroit, to do a joint application, and the idea of doing that was we would get the most money. We are one county.
We lost Khalil.
Oh, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
hear you.
Okay. Sorry.
So, go
So
ahead.
we applied with the DEGC. In our grant application, we said, we were going to split the money 50-50. We don't necessarily have the back office infrastructure to administer the funds. And so the DEGC has agreed to take on those responsibilities. And so the way we will distribute the funds is $800,000 and $800,000. And applications come in through some of our business development managers. And there's two boards set up, one board for the DEGC and one board for Wayne County. On the DEGC, we each get a member on each board. And we've recommended that the chairwoman be the representative on the DEGC board. On the board that we established, we have a member from the DEGC, the county, a member from the Conference of Western Wayne, and a member from the Downriver Community Conference. We reached out to the Conference of Western Wayne and asked them, who would they like to see on that board, and same thing with the Downriver Community Conference, and they both made recommendations. We let them know that, this money covers areas that are not in the 64% of the loan program. And so if they had representatives from those areas, that would be perfectly fine. And so applications will come in through our business development managers, and we'll take that to the boards, and the boards will decide.
Is this going to be a simple one-page application like the loan program?
Yeah, I think we haven't even received the funds yet. I think we will receive more clarity on the criteria and things like that from the state this coming week. I expect us to have that April 1st-ish. So people should be able to apply online, hopefully towards the end of the week. There are different, scoring criteria to see who can and who can't apply. I think the difficulty here is to know $1.6 million is not enough. And we are going to get more applications than we have money. And so the cap is $10,000. It doesn't mean you're going to get $10,000. And to figure out how much you're going to get, there are going to be a series of different criteria that our team is still developing now. You should know we just got notified of the award on Friday. So we're trying to fly the ship as we build it here.
Okay, so these will be taxable in the long run, but the Fed's loans may turn into grants and not be taxable. Is that correct?
That's correct. You have to prove under the federal program that you've kept that you've used the money the right way, and you've kept all your employees hired during the allocated amount of time. And just preference the federal stuff with this. it is hours old, and the IRS has not given any kind of interpretation of what they see the CARES Act looks like. So we are interpreting it based on this plain language that we see in the statute. But I would preference that just by saying that, the IRS has not given us any kind of direction on any of it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Dobb?
Thank you. Going back to what we were just discussing on the application criteria, and I know that you're going to send us a copy of the application, but I just want to talk about what are we looking at when a business applies for the TCF loan or possibly this new loan program that we might be doing. Because I am really concerned about this personal guarantee in that businesses might be feeling desperate right now. They want to get some money to keep their businesses going. And I'm worried that we're going to be giving loans to businesses that might not survive and people who are putting up, their own personal assets and that it's going to hurt them. They're going to lose everything when they shouldn't be taking out loans right now. So how are we looking at that we're giving out these loans responsibly?
Madam Chair, if I could weigh in on that comment. Commissioner, for most businesses, when you get into a situation like this, the problem at hand for them is mostly working capital. Having cash is king in a situation like this. They need money to refill their inventory, to pay their employees, to pay their rent, to pay their heating bills, to keep things of that. When it comes to so liquidity is really the issue for them. A lot of times it's not necessarily their net worth or their assets or the viability of the business. It's really just getting through a crisis in working capital, a short-term crisis in working capital. So their net worth may not be the issue because they've got hard assets that give them value, but they can't liquidate those hard assets in a situation like this. If they own the building, if they own other, furnitures, fixtures. So what they need is something to sustain them working capital wise to get them through the hump, because trying to convert any of their other assets to cash to pay off those types of debts is a problem for them. And I think that that's basically the problem or the issue with these loans. And you can see it in the form of the federal loans. It's to pay for working capital issues, although you can use it for fixed debts like accounts payable, their mortgage payments, things of that sort. So getting them through the hump of liquidity and working capital is probably the biggest hurdle that they need to overcome.
Okay.
Hey, sorry, this is Khalil. I got an incoming call and then I lost everything. I jumped back on. I missed almost all of Mark's brilliant response, so I'm sorry. But I would just say we had a very deep discussion with TCF Bank about this. And, I think, depending on how you go, the kind of concerns I think Commissioner Dobbin, maybe others will raise, brings to light a very, very different kind of a need. And so one of the things we did was team up with a bank because nobody wants to see the money at risk, even the banks. And so they take, good, strong precaution. They do this for a living. This is something that we do not do for a living. That's why we decided to team up with a bank. And the kind of concerns that we're talking about, the essence of which really leads us to say, okay, if these are your real concerns, well, maybe we ought to talk about a grant program, which is a very, very different thing. Because as I mentioned earlier, loans, even though they come with their issues, we're all dealing with issues here. It's just a matter of how we mitigate some of these issues. Some loans can be better than grants, and that is because of the taxable income problem. And so, I recognize that there are issues for sure. And I will tell you, some businesses are going to go under because of this pandemic. It's going to happen. So we're not going to be able to solve every problem. There isn't enough money in the world, as Commissioner Jesus pointed out earlier. All we're trying to do, and the best that we can, is to mitigate the circumstances that we're facing.
Exactly.
All right,
Okay,
thank
what
you.
I'd like to do is I would like to get to the meat and potatoes here. And since we really want to do something, Khalil and Huey and Mark, let's not worry about the amount of the money that we want to put up, but how do we make this happen?
So the first thing I would tell you is we can't do this without TCF Bank. So the very first thing that needs to happen is, I appreciate, I think Commissioner Marecki really did an excellent job at the last meeting, and we had the member from TCF Bank, on, at the hearing, and she asked the very, very key question, and that was, if the county were to put up more funds to take this countywide, would you match those funds? And he seemed to give a very positive response. Okay, but I don't have a definitive like, hey, we're ready to go from the bank. The bank is still right now trying to administer our existing program and trying to keep up with the demand. And so I think first and foremost, I have to reach out to the bank to see if they're willing to keep the same set of circumstances and do more of the program. I think that's first and foremost. And then second, my recommendation would be is if the commission goes forward with this, the commission has the agreement between TCF Bank and the CDE. I would mirror that agreement, except I would take out all the references to the CDE and put Wayne County. That way the reporting of the requirements come back to the county commission, all those kinds of things. And I think, given that opportunity to just change that agreement only that way and show that to the bank, and let's see what they say first and foremost, because they may just say, listen, this is a lot of work right now. We can't do it at this moment. Then, I think that makes all of our decisions a lot easier. But if they say that they can do it under the same exact set of circumstances, I think I would report that back to Mark and have him report it back to the commissioners, and we can see where we can go from there.
So Felicia, are you there?
I am.
Felicia?
Yes.
Okay, so what I hear is that we could draw up the same program that they currently have, that we at the commission level have that authority, and it is in our prerogative to do so. Is that correct?
I did hear that. I assume we want the CEO's buy-in on that. And I'm also not sure what type of budget adjustments will be needed. So it's a discussion I'll have to have with Mark and maybe Khalil and Cheryl from Corp Counsel.
Okay, thank you. Mark?
Yes.
Budget adjustment, we would have to make,
Yeah, I think that we could
could
work
we
through
make
that.
that ourselves, or do we need to have it come from the
I expect that we will
executive?
probably, have the Ways and Means meeting, not this Thursday, but within 2 weeks, and we can incorporate any kind of a budget adjustment. But the budget adjustment can always follow the arrangement with TCF Bank.
So Khalil, would you please go and ask the bank, and we're going to meet again Wednesday. Do you think you would have an answer by then?
I will work my hardest.
Commissioner Hadis?
Yes.
You're co-chairing
yeah,
this. I want to
yeah,
give
yeah.
you the opportunity. I kind of took over.
Yeah, my understanding in the beginning is the TCF Bank did give positive reaction if we get the non-restricted funding to that. And I really see it's not very difficult situation. We don't need, in the time of need, in the time of high risk in every area in our life, we need to make a decision based on what's minimize the damage. We might not be able to have 100% solution for everybody, but at least we in the process to help and assist with what we can. That's why I really strongly support to go fast enough to put those $2 million to work with the matching fund from the bank fast as possible. And I urge everybody to work hard to get everything ready for this next meeting on Thursday. We might have to do a budget adjustment in the future, but as Mr. Apple mentioned, that could follow. So it's my position.
Okay, now let me go back. Could we be ready for that for Thursday? Felicia?
Well, we can do what we can. I'm not sure if I have that agreement Khalil referred to, but I can definitely get with him and Cheryl offline to see if we can get a copy, because I'm not sure if I have it. As far as the budget adjustment, I would just indicate that we're saying that the budget adjustment could follow, but depending on when you want this program to start, you'll need the funding. And if we don't have another full board for 2 weeks after that, then understand that if you don't have everything this week, that means you're potentially delaying it 2 weeks, because you'll need the funding in place before you can actually start the program. So while I agree under normal circumstances, we can have them both, just understand that before you start the program, all the pieces will need to be put in place.
Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. I wasn't sure if we could have the budget adjustment ready. Mark?
Madam Chair, my thought is that there's a program in place right now, and we wouldn't get to the funding, the incremental funding, until sometime later. So I think that I mean, and Khalil can respond to this also, but
yeah,
I don't see 2 weeks as a detriment.
No, I mean, well, the funding, money is fungible. So the bank has plenty of money. It doesn't need our $2 million to do the program. It just needs to know it's going to get our $2 million, you know, to be applied for under the circumstances. So, you know, if the agreement is acceptable and agreed upon by the bank and the commission, the bank can get going on the program probably right away, and then receive the money later on. Because I don't see, it's not like they're going to take the county's $2 million, put it in you know, one account and only use that money for that account for the loans, right? It's money can be moved around a little bit. So and I will say, Madam Chairwoman, you do have the agreement.
Yes.
And so, and if you need another one, Felicia, we'll get you a copy of that for sure. Or just Madam Chairwoman can give it to Felicia and we can go from there.
Yeah, that's fine, because as I see it, we can work with Felicia and Mark for the actual agreement. Like I said, Khalil, we can just take the agreement that you all had, just replace out the words for Wayne County, and we could possibly get a resolution. I don't know if we need a resolution or ordinance, but that can be ready for Thursday's meeting. The budget adjustment, does that have to go through Ways and Means, or can we do that at the full board as well?
That
Felicia?
has to go through Ways and Means.
Yes, Ways and Means.
Okay, so at least we can get the resolution prepared and all of the documents prepared and vote on that on Thursday. And then whenever the next Ways and Means is scheduled, we can do the budget adjustment. So I'll forward to you, Felicia, the agreement that they had with the WBE and TCF.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
is there
Yes,
not a possibility that Ways and Means could meet on just this one item, 9 o'clock prior to the full board?
Either, I would suggest possibly even, if you all meet again, if this task force meets again on Wednesday morning, and you come to a dollar amount agreement, you could have a Ways and Means meeting immediately after the task force meeting on Wednesday to allow staff to get everything prepared for Thursday.
That would be
I think
excellent.
we're pretty well on the same page, Madam Chair. I'm not sure, maybe all the members could chime in on the $2 million.
I'm good with that, Terry. I'm good with 2 million.
I'm strongly good with that.
Chairwoman Bella, you.
I'm in favor.
And for clarity, that's $2 million loan that'll be matched by
Loan.
TCF for a total of 4 million?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
If you learned something today in the meeting for the retirement board, that we ought to know that if you think 2 billion is too high, then we can talk about this some more on Wednesday.
Yes.
Chairwoman Bell.
Yes, I'll definitely give you the results from the pension board meeting that is taking
Okay.
place as we speak.
We'll decide on the amount on Wednesday then. And can everybody meet at 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock? Whenever. I'm good with any.
Madam Chair, are you referring to Ways and Means meeting on Wednesday?
No, this
No.
same group.
Oh, okay, yes. I think I can meet.
I know I can meet.
I know my
Bill's
schedule
going on.
packed, you know.
Why don't we make this, like, if we make this meeting 10 o'clock like that, it give us room to get the Way and Mean after that by 11.
All right, 10 o'clock on Wednesday, same place right here.
Is that
We do have an agenda in front of us, and has everyone who wanted to be part of the discussion, commissioners, were you able to voice your opinions and have your say?
Yes.
Everybody?
Yes.
I'm fine.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm good, thank you.
Then, Madam Clerk, let's go on to the next item.
So excuse me, the next meeting, Zoom meeting is going to be this
10
Wednesday?
o'clock,
This Wednesday at
Yes.
10 o'clock or next Wednesday?
10 a.m.
Next week.
This Wednesday.
No, this
This-
Wednesday.
10
This
a.m.
week, okay. Want to make sure it's,
2 days, in 2 days. We have to finish the agenda. So we need an item D, such other matters.
Item D, such other matters as may be properly submitted before the committee.
I have none. Next item.
I have, Madam Chair, this is more of a
Yes.
general question. It might benefit others.
Okay.
Has any, and it's not related directly to this, but has anyone received any guidelines of how those that are unemployed because of COVID how the unemployment is going to work? I know the contract, individual contract employees are going to be eligible, whereas they're not eligible under current Michigan law for unemployment. Has anyone heard any details on that, of when that's going to be rolled out so we get the information to disseminate?
Anyone here?
Are you talking about the, you said unemployment?
Unemployment benefits, yes.
From what I understand, the governor increased unemployment for just about everyone. If you have a 1099, if you're a gig economy, and she added $600 per week per the regular unemployment dollars. I think that executive order was today. I'll check my notes and see if I have a copy I can send it to you. But she expanded the who is eligible to just about everybody, and added $600 extra per week on the regular 300 and change that's normally for unemployment.
Have you heard anything about the process for someone that otherwise has not been eligible for unemployment benefits?
I have not, but I think
Commissioner
everything
Anderson?
is online.
Yeah, this is Tim. My daughter applied. She's a 1099 employee, and she applied online the other day.
Okay, so she was able to employ or to apply for benefits already.
Yes, correct.
Okay, last question I had is that, Tim, is there any update on the mail situation that we might have received at the office?
I don't have one as of yet. I was going to contact the exec's office later to see if there's an update. So I think they were holding it till today at the post office.
Okay.
I'm not sure what their plans are.
If you could,
I'm sorry. Could you repeat that question? I might have some insight into that. Repeat the question.
Oh, the
The
question
question was about the mail.
Yes.
Yeah, the mail. The mail.
This mail.
Yeah, the mail is being held at USPS, UPS, and FedEx. If there's a specific package, I can help coordinate if there's a specific package that you are expecting. Yeah, we just held the mail because we weren't sure there was going to be adequate personnel to collect it and disseminate it.
I don't know of anything in particular, but I'm just thinking of even constituent contact that maybe now we're looking at 2-3 weeks, going on the third week now, and just wanted to address that to see if we could find some way to retrieve the mail.
Got it. Let me look into it and I'll figure out a way to get back to you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Next item.
Public comments?
Anyone listening in or viewing us have any public comments? Anyone? If you have public comments and you're online with us, just please talk up, speak up. I hear none. Next item.
Excuse me. My name is Anthony Ferris. I have a company called Ferris Company, Inc. And I do have a comment.
Yes.
First of all, I want to commend you guys for jumping on this. I think it's you guys are doing a very good job. Secondly,
Thank you.
one of the things that I heard at the inception of this meeting was in regards to closing some of the gaps out there. I'd just like to leave this with you guys. I'm a small business. I've been in business since 2010, I believe. I'm an inventor. I have a product called the Steam Valet, and I'm out there trying to get my product out. I'm currently selling my product on Amazon, on my website, and I have an online store. Since this COVID-19 has hit, my sales have just stopped completely. What I want to just say is that just make sure that you guys consider the companies who are sort of like me, just getting their product out there. Just, I don't have employees, but I do have bills. I have to purchase inventory. I have to purchase supplies and so forth. And I do have a loan that I got on a personal basis that I still have to pay for, even though it's not in my company's name. But I'm looking at seeing if I could transfer that over to my company. But just don't forget the companies like me who are small, who are just getting out there. And so that's for my business. But I also have a role as far as what I do. I work for Great Lakes Women's Business Council. And I'm the business growth manager for Great Lakes Women's Business Council. And I have about 62 clients in a program that I have. And then we have loan clients also. And a lot of our clients basically have been really, really hurt. I mean, I just talked to a guy last week regarding his business. He just, started making money and revenue and so forth. And he was cut off by this virus. And, his business is, and I'll just say this, I won't give you the name, but his business is transporting children for high schools and to various high school events and so forth. And I mean, there's nothing he really can do. We were trying to talk and try to figure out some ways to get his company back on track or what he could do. Well, this has basically been devastating. So I suggested to him that he apply for the federal government loan. And they turned him down. We did some more investigation and they turned him down because of credit concern. So one thing is that we told him to go back. So I guess the federal government with their loan program is trying to go back and evaluate their credit criteria. So that's the other thing I was going to suggest. Don't make the credit criteria so rigid that, people who desperately need it can't get it. You guys, I read some of your articles. One of the things that your criteria, I guess, is one of the things is that you're talking about is showing a loss in revenue or some type of detriment to your revenue. Do you have any guidelines behind that, or do you have any criteria for that? Because that's important too. And I think in a time like this, some of that stuff should be spelled out and put out front so people won't have to go through the process of filling out all this paperwork. And I understand yours is good because yours is a one-pager, but in some other circumstances, it's not. And people have to go through all of this and then get another rejection. So I just want to say, keep those things in mind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner, if I can speak. Yes, Commissioner, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, this is Jackie Vandergriff. How are you?
Good, thank you.
I have two questions. One, I don't know who mentioned it, but they said only 64% of Wayne County would be able to qualify for the grants. How would we know what the 36% that is not eligible?
It's what we do in here. We're trying to cover the whole Wayne County. It's additional funding we're working on. It's to cover the county at large.
Okay. But I know someone said that for the, yes.
I'm sorry, would you spell your name for the record, please?
Jacqueline, Jacqueline. The last name is Vandergrift, Vandergrift. My next question is, someone mentioned that nonprofit organizations and churches can also apply for the grant.
We haven't got that far yet.
Okay.
Usually under public comments, we don't get into the discussion, but we haven't discussed that part yet.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else from the public? Anyone else? We're still under public comments. Anyone else? Okay, I hear none. Next item.
Adjournment.
So moved.
Do I hear a motion to
Support.
adjourn? It's been moved and supported. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. And we will be meeting at 10 a.m. on Wednesday. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.